We begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Tzadik Ches Amud Beis, bottom of the Amud. Zok Heilige Mishnah Shoyel Sapara. A person borrows a cow. V'shol Chaloi, the owner sends the cow biyad benoi, in the hands of his own son, biyad avdoi, in the hands of a slave, or biyad shluchai, in the hands of his shliach, appointed a messenger to go and send it. So he's sending it on his own initiative to the borrower. Oy biyad benoi, biyad avdoi, biyad shluchai shel shoyel. Or he's sending it in the hands of the son, slave, or shliach of the borrower. But again, this is all on the initiative of the owner. The shoyel himself is not requesting this, that he should send it in their hands. Umeisa, and the cow died before it got to him. Potter. So the shoyel is going to be potter because it's not yet his responsibility. It's not yet in his possession at all. So here there's one case that Rashi clarifies. There's a Gemara in Bava Metzia that talks about this, because one case it said here is that he sent it in the hands of the shliach of the shoyel. Shliach of the shoyel sounds like that the shoyel actually sent this shliach and appointed him, send it with the shliach to me. So now she says that the Gemara in Bava Metzia says it doesn't mean literally that he was a shliach mamish, that he appointed him. What it means is either it's just a person that works for him, schira lekita, someone that he hired that works for him, and the owner saw him and says, oh, you take it for this person that wants to borrow it from me. Or Rashi says, shliach over here just simply means that the shoyel told the mashal, this is a person I trust. You could send it with him. But he didn't tell him you should send it with him. He never really appointed him as a shliach. So therefore, if it dies before it gets to the borrower, he'll be potter. However, if the borrower says, Sholchali, send it to me, biyad b'ni, biyad avdi, biyad shluchi, in the hands of my son, my slave, or my shliach, or he tells the owner, biyad bincha, biyad avcha, biyad shluchacha, send me the cow that I'm borrowing in the hands of your slave, your shliach, or your son. Or the mashal, the owner that's lending him, lets him know, Hareini mishal chalach, I will be sending this to you, biyad bini, in the hands of my son, biyad avdi, biyad shluchi, in the hands of my slave or shliach. Oy biyad bincha, biyad avcha, biyad shluchacha, in the hands of your son, slave or shliach. So he let him know. V'amalei hashoyel, and the shoyel responds and says, Shalach, yes, send it in their hands to me. And v'sholcha, and he sent it, umeisa, and the cow died. Then chayiv. Then the shoyel will be responsible even before it came into his possession. As soon as he agrees that he should send it to him, he's going to be chayiv for this. And v'chein b'shah shemachzirah. Similar will be the halacha if he's returning now this cow after he's done using it and he's returning it. So over here it'll also depend. If the shoyel is returning it on his own initiative, so then until it gets back to the hands of the mashal, to the owner, he's going to be responsible for whatever happens to it. But if the owner sends a shlich and says, here, and if it's on the owner's initiative that he's sending it back to him, so then, as soon as it's out of the hands of the borrower and he gave it over to the son or the shliach, or whatever that the owner sent, you're going to be potter. Talk to Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah? Biyad avdoi chayiv. It said in the Mishnah that if the shoyel says to the mashal, the borrower says to the owner, send me this cow in the hands of your eved. That's the owner's eved. So will the shoyel in that case be chayiv? Why should we say such a thing? Even though true, it was the initiative of the shoyel, but yad evet ki yad rabbi. The rule is that the hands of a slave is like the hands of the master himself. The slave is like an extension of the master himself. So if this cow is still in the hands of the master himself, or the owner himself in this case, obviously the shoyel is not responsible for anything that happens. If the slave is like the owner himself, so then why should the borrower be responsible? So Shmuel answers, here we're talking about a Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave, that the owner actually does not own his body the way he owns an Eved Kanani. So when it's in the hands of this slave, he's not the owner himself. So you, the shoyel, on your initiative, you told him send it in the hands of this Eved Ivri, so now you take responsibility. Rav gives a different answer. Afilateme be'Eved Kanani. The Mishnah could be speaking about when the shoyel says to the owner, send it in the hands of Eved Kanani, and the owner does own the body of the Eved Kanani. So it's mamish like it's still in the hands of the owner. So why in this case will the shoyel be responsible? The answer is because Nase ka'omerle, as soon as the shoyel says to the mashal, send it to me. When he says, I'm ready to take responsibility, send it to me. So Nase ka'omerle, it's considered to be like the shoyel told the owner, Hekisha b'makal, hit the animal with a stick, and it's going to come to me. in such a case where the owner is not sending it in anyone's hands, but the shayl tells the owner, just hit it with a stick and it'll run to me, it'll come to me. From the moment that he hit it with the stick, the shayl is going to be responsible. So here, even though now the Eved is the one that actually picks it up and takes it, but because it was your initiative, it was the shayl's initiative, it's as if you told him, hit it with a stick and it's going to come to me, and therefore the shayl is going to be responsible. What asks in this, we have a brisa that says different than our Mishnah regarding the Eved. So Meisvei, they ask, the brisa says, the shayl is a part, a person borrows a cow. And now, V'shol chaloi biyad benoi biyad shluchai. If the shayl asks the mashal, send it to me and send it to me in the hands of your son, in the hands of your shliach, chayev. The shayl is going to be chayev because he asked him. He's the one that said to send it to him. But if it's biyad avdoi, if he asked the mashal to send it to him, and he sent it in the hands of a slave, then potter. Then, even though the shayl is the one that asked for it, still you're going to be potter. And so this is not like our Mishnah that said that even in the hands of the Eved, of the owner, you will be chayev. So the Gemara explains, how do we explain the difference between what the Mishnah said and what the Brisa said? According to Shmuel, we could simply say, Masnisin be'Eved Ivri. As Shmuel explained, in our Mishnah, it's the Eved Ivri, and the Eved Ivri, his body is not owned by his master, so when it's in the hands of the Eved Ivri, it's not like it's still in the hands of the owner. So therefore, you're going to be responsible. You asked for it. Braise be'Eved Kanani. However, the Braise is where it's an Eved Kanani, which is like the master himself, and therefore it's still like in the hands of the owner. So you'll be potter. So we can understand the difference between the Mishnah and the Braise. But Rav, according to Rav, Kashya, this is a question. How do we explain the difference between the Mishnah and the Braise? So the Gemara explains, Amaloch Rav, or some take out the word Rav. The answer over here is, Loi Taimet. Don't say like we said before. What Rav said before is not the way we had the version before. Loi Taimet Naaseh Ka'omelei. Don't say that because the shoyl requested the mashal to send it, so therefore it's as if he told him, hit it and it'll come to me. And then therefore, even if the mashal sent it in the hands of this Eved, you'll be responsible. No, it's not that. The point there is not that we consider it as if. Elohim, rather say, what's the pshat in our Mishnah? Ba'amar le hikisha b'makol v'hitovai. It's the case of our Mishnah is when the borrower says to the owner, just hit it, let the animal come, and it'll come to me, and therefore he becomes responsible. Even if the owner now decides to send it in the hands of his son, or even his Eved, or a shliach, whoever the owner wants to send it in his hands, it doesn't make a difference. If you told him clearly, just hit it with a stick and it'll come to me, you'll be responsible. That's what the Mishnah was talking about. Whereas the Braise, he didn't say that. In the Braise, because he didn't say that, so therefore you're going to be potter when you send it in the hands of a Eved, which is still like the owner himself. Now, the Gemara brings the Itmar. This halacha was taught also in the Besmedrish. Hashileni parascha. A person says to an owner, "Lend me your cow." V'amalei, and the owner says, "Biyad me." With who should I send it to you? V'amalei, and the borrower says, "Shtikisha b'makol v'tove." Just hit it with a stick, and the animal is going to run to me. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Baravu, Amar Rav. So it was said in the name of Rav. So with Rav that was explaining our Mishnah. So it was taught in the yeshiva that Rav said regarding this case, Kivin sheyatzis merishos mashal. As soon as the animal leaves the possession, the domain of the mashal, umeisa, and it died on the way going to the shayl chayev, you're going to be responsible. Why? Because by you agreeing that he can just hit it and it'll come to you. So as soon as it leaves the possession of the mashal, you're taking responsibility on that. That was what our Mishnah was talking about according to Rav. Says the Gemara, shall we say that we have a clear raya to what Rav said in the language of a Braisa? The Braisa says basically this exact thing. The Braisa says, a person says, lend me your cow. V'amalei, and the owner says, biyad me, in whose hands should I send it to you? V'amalei, and the shoyl responds, hekisha b'makol v'tovai. Just hit it with a stick and it's going to come to me. As soon as it leaves the domain of the owner, umesa, and it dies, chayev, the shoyl, the borrower is responsible. Exactly what Rav said. So Amar Ravashi, but Ravashi says that Braisa is not necessarily the same halacha as Rav. That Braisa could be talking about a different case. What is this Braisa talking about? You have two courtyards that are right near each other. And the courtyard of the shoyl is inside of the mashal, which means in order for the animal to go from his backyard, from the owner's backyard, to the shoyl, to the borrower's backyard, it just goes straight. So when you said, hit it and it'll come to my backyard, it's going to go straight to you. So therefore you're going to be responsible. As soon as it leaves his yard, it's in your yard. It goes straight to you. So So therefore, you're going to be responsible. That's what the Braisa was talking about. The chi mishalchala, when he sends it to go to the borrower, it definitely goes straight to the borrower. So therefore, he's responsible. But Rav was saying something else. Rav was saying that there's a street that separates in between, and it has to walk through a Rishus Rabim to get to your yard. And Rav was saying, even there, if you told him hit it, then even if he ends up sending it in the hands of someone else that has to carry it over or bring it over from his courtyard to yours, you're still going to be responsible. So Rav said a bigger chiddush. So the Gemara asks, but if we're saying the Braisa here is talking about that you have these two chatzeres that are literally right near each other, so then Maila Memra, what's the chiddush that if it leaves his yard and now it's in your yard, you're going to be responsible? It's already by you. Of course you're responsible. Answers the Gemara, Lo tzriche de ikke gaz yaisa. The case over here is that there are corners in the property of the owner that the animal can go to and hide in the corner there and not end up going to your yard. So I would think to say, that when you tell the owner, just hit it and it'll come to me, even though you said that to him, you're still really not relying on the fact that it's going to end up coming to your yard, because it could end up getting lost in some corner somewhere and not come to you. So dilme, again, because dilme kaima hasam v'le asya ozla lehedya. Maybe it's going to get lost or stuck somewhere in a corner and it's not going to end up coming straight to you. So even if you told him, just hit it and it'll come to me, that doesn't, lav after you're taking responsibility. Kamash malan, the samcha daite. That's why the Braisa is saying that even 2 yards that are near each other and there's those corners, but nevertheless, you are taking responsibility as soon as you tell him to hit it, that it should come to you. Omer Rav Huna said, Hashoyel kardem machavere, a person that borrowed an axe from his friend. Boka boy, when you use the axe to chop wood with it, konvei. That's when the shoyel acquires it. Loy boka boy, you did not use it yet. You didn't chop wood with it yet. Loy kana, you did not acquire it yet. So the Gemara explains regarding what did Rav Huna say. This lamai, acquiring it for what sake, in what sense? If the point of here is, at what point do you become responsible? And Rav Huna was saying, you only become responsible at the time when you actually used it. So the question is, why should we say that? Why is it any different from what we were learning until here? Pada, from a cow. The mishas she'ela, from the time when you borrowed it, and on your initiative, it left the possession of the owner. So you're going to be chayiv. Whether you use the cow yet or not, if you want to borrow something and it's leaving the domain, the possession of the owner, so that's the time when your responsibility begins. So why here are we saying that your responsibility only begins from when you actually use it? Why should it only begin from when you actually use it? You already borrowed it. So the Gemara says, so it's not for the responsibility of Einstein. Ella l'chazara. Rather, Rav Huna was talking about something else. From what moment do you say that the owner that's lending this to you cannot retract from his word that he gave it to you to borrow? From what time did he say that you acquire it, that he cannot not take it back? If you went and you actually already used it, then so now the owner that said he's going to lend this to you for a certain period of time cannot just say, no, I want it back right now. You already gave it to you, and now you can have it until that time is up. But if you did not yet begin using it, so the owner can retract and say, I changed my mind, I don't want to lend this to you. So over here, the point that Rav Huna is being mechadish is, by a regular kinyan, when you acquire something, how do you acquire something? When it enters into your property, Mashiach, you bring it into your property, so now the seller cannot retract from the sale. But when it comes to borrowing, it's different. Borrowing is not like a sale. When it comes into your property, Mashiach, the owner can still retract from this borrowing. But only after you use it, so you began already a certain job that you're using it already for something, then you can't take it back. That was a chiddush of Rav Huna. But you chayiv an answer from before, because that's, once it leaves, that's the chiyuv of the Torah. Even when he's going to be chayzer, obviously you won't be chayiv. But until he's chayzer, you are a shoyel, though. It's not saying you're not a shoyel. You're a shoyel right from the beginning. But he has the option to be chayzer. Now the Gemara says on this, so pliga de Rabami, that what Rav Huna says argues on what Rabami said. Because the Omer Rabami said, a mashal kardem shel hektish, a person that lent to somebody an axe, and it wasn't even his axe. It was an axe of hektish. Ma'al, so now this lender that lent this axe of hektish, he is moyal, meaning he's the one that misused this axe and took it out of hektish. The halacha by me'ila is, once you misuse this item for something which is not for the purpose of hektish, for inyan of chulin, that itself takes this item out of hektish, you moil, and now you have to pay to hektish the value of what you will moil, but now the item itself goes out of the possession of hektish. So the person that lent it to you, he was moil, he took it out of the possession of hektish. Now the Gemara explains, what is he moil here? The person that actually lent it to you is not really gaining anything out of this. He has no profit out of this. So what is his me'ila? His me'ila is lefi toivas hana shabai. There is a certain value that he did get out of it, which is the favor that you did for this person that you lent it to. So as much of value that favor is, that someone should be machzik tova to you, that you're doing that favor has a certain value, that people are appreciating what you did, the value of what that is, that's your me'ila with the fact that you used an item of hektish to get a certain level of appreciation that has a certain value. So you were moil in it. And once you were moil in it, so now, as I mentioned, it leaves the domain of hektish. So now the borrower is allowed to use it to chop wood with it l'chatchila, because it's out of the domain of hektish. That's what Rav Ami said. So now here, Rav Ami says that he's allowed to go and use it, which means that it already becomes his. The moment he lent it to you, it's out of the domain of hektish. It becomes yours even before you began using it. So but if what Rav Huna said was true, that you still didn't really fully acquire it, because really the one that lent it to you could retract from it. You can just take it back until you use it. So amai mo'al, why should you say that there's a me'ila, it already leaves the domain of hektish, and v'amai chaverim mutal of kaya by lechatchila? Why are we saying that you could now already take it and use it and chop wood with it? Nehedre v'lo likne, it really still is in the domain of hektish. There's no kinyan here yet. Rav Huna says the kinyan only begins when you actually used it. But before you used it, there's no kinyan yet, so you should just give it back, and you're not kain it, you're not moil in it. Elamai, what you see over here is that the moment the shoyel did meshicha, the moment he took it from the lender, even before he used it, it's already complete a kinyan, he borrowed it, and the lender cannot retract from that, so he was moil in it already, so now l'chatchila you can go ahead and use it. Another thing, actually just time to mention here, there's a discussion over here, a big discussion in Taisvis and the Rishonim about this, because it says that the lender is only moil lefi toivas hana. He's not really using the entire axe, gaining profit of the whole value of the axe. His me'ila is just the appreciation that he has in the fact that he's lending it out. And at the same time, though, it says that the shoyel is allowed to use it fully, it leaves the domain of hektish completely. So that's a certain discrepancy over here. Why does it leave the domain of hektish completely? It's a big discussion here in the Rishonim and Taisvis. Okay, let's go weiter. The Gemara says, "Uplige dera belazar." What Rav Huna said also argues what Rabbi Lazar said. Because Rabbi Lazar said, "Kederech shetiknu mishicha belekucha." It's just like when you acquire something in a sale. So how are you acquiring it? With metaltalin. There's the kinyan of mishicha. When you pull it, you bring it into your property. You kaina. Kach tiknu mishicha b'shaimrim. The same thing is the mishicha by shaimrim. As soon as you bring it into your property, even before you use it, it's already totally yours, and the owner cannot retract from this. Tanya Namayachi, we learned this way in the Braisa as well. The Braisa says, Kishem shetikna mishicha b'lekucha. It's just like there's the takana, the kinyan of mishicha regarding lekucha is kach tikna mishicha b'shaimrim. Same thing also is the kinyan of mishicha by any shaimim. Ukishem, now the Braisa continues and says another halacha, just like it is that shakarka niknes b'kesav u'b'shtar b'chazake, you acquire a full kinyan of any property. You have three options: either to pay money, or with a shtar that the meicher writes for the lekeach and gives him the shtar, or with a chazake when you do something in the property, you close the door, the fence, or you dig in it, you correct something in the property. That's the chazake. Kach, the same also schiris. By a rental, nikne bekesav b'shtar b'chazake. It could be the rental could be acquired with one of these three ways: kesav, shtar, or chazake. So the Gemara clarifies what kind of a rental are we talking about. Schiros mai avidite. What kind of a rental are we talking about? The Gemara thinks that it's talking about a rental of metaltalin, of an animal or of vessels. So regarding acquiring metaltalin, there is no kinyan for metaltalin unless it's meshiche, not kesef or shtar chazake. So the Gemara answers, it's talking about a rental of a property. Just like when you acquire a property, it's kesef shtar chazake. The rental of a property is also with kesef shtar or chazake. Omar Shmuel, Hayman the Gozel Chavitze the Tamri Mechaveirei. A person that stole a cake of dates from his friend. Ve'ez ba chamishim tamri. And this cake of dates has in it 50 dates pressed together. Agava dodi, they're pressed together. Now, the story with this is, there's two ways how this could be sold. Mizdavnon binun naki chode. If you sell it all together, the whole cake together, so then the price of it is going to be 49. Okay, it's being sold together, so it's cheaper, 49. But chada, if it's being sold separately, then mizdavnon binun. Then the price actually is going to be $1 for each date, and then it's going to be a total of $50. Okay, so this is usually the way a person that buys in wholesale, he buys the cakes of dates or figs, and then he sells it one by one, and he makes his profit. So now, if you steal it from someone, how do you pay him back? Do you pay him back the wholesale price, or do you pay him back the retail price? So the Gemara says it depends. If you stole from just another plain individual, so then you're paying back only 49. For hektish, you're going to have to pay the more expensive price, the retail price, which is 50, if it would be sold each one separately, and v'chum shayu. When you steal from hektish, when you're stealing your moil, take from hektish, you also have to add a fifth that you pay. Mashenat, the Bryce here adds, this is halacha of Shmuel, Mashe'en kain b'mazik. This halacha of adding a payment of a fifth to a hektish does not apply in a case where you damaged hektish. It only applies when you steal from hektish, but not by damaging. You don't add a fifth. The Oma Amar, as the master learned out from the pasuk, Ish ki yechal kodesh prat lamazik. That if you eat from kachin, and there the pasuk continues and says that v'yasav chamishisa olav, you have to add a fifth. That's not by a mazik. That's only by when you steal from hektish. Taisus here actually points out that the emes is that the person that's mazik hektish, minatayre, you're not chayiv to pay at all. Not only not a fifth, but you don't pay at all when you're mazik hektish. We had in Masechta Bava Metzia, benegay to a person that when you're mazik hektish, you're not chayiv at all. So the payment over here that you pay is only midrabanan. Okay, but now the Gemara is going to focus on what we said here, that we make a distinction between the payment to a hedyot or a hektish by gzela. By a hedyot you pay the cheaper price, the wholesale price, and by the hektish you pay the retail price. Why are you saying this? Why by hektish does he have to pay a cheaper price, only 49? Let the person that you stole from say to you, you stole this cake of dates from me, and I would have sold each one separately, retail, and for me it was a value of 50. So why are you paying me back 49? So Rav Yeshua answers, this is based on a Mishnah in Bava Metzia, where it says, Shomin beis sa'ah ba'oisa sadet nan. The Mishnah there says, what happens if your animal went to someone's property and ate some vegetables in his property, in a row of tomatoes, it ate some tomatoes. You don't evaluate, he doesn't have to pay the value of those tomatoes itself. You evaluate those tomatoes in relation to the value of the entire field. How much was the value of the entire field decreased by these few tomatoes that were eaten here? If you're going to pay the value of those tomatoes itself, the price that you're going to pay is going to be much more than if you just pay the value that the whole entire property went down with those few tomatoes that were eaten. So what do we see from that Mishnah? When it comes to a person that's a mazik or a gazlan, which is also like a mazik, so we're lenient with him. We evaluate the payment based on the larger portion of the entire field. Similar over here, when we say that this gazlan has to pay, we don't evaluate each date separately to pay the full value, which is going to be 50, but you evaluate it all together, which would be then only 49.
We made a difference between a hedyot and somebody that sells. Why don't you make that difference?
Between a hedyot and... Okay, the Gemara soon...
We did that in both.
Okay, the Gemara is soon going to make such a kind of distinction, beneged to a barrel. We'll see in a moment. The Gemara is going to make such a kind of distinction. I'm not sure if it applies over here, but that is a svara. Okay, but now here the Gemara is going to question, why are we b'chlal making this distinction between hedyot and hektish? So we see regarding a hedyot, the Mishnah says that we're lenient with the payment. But we don't apply that leniency to hektish. By hektish, you have to pay the full retail price. But the Gemara asks on this, over here, 1 second. 1 second. Lememre the Sava Shmuel. This was Shmuel's opinion here. So now the Gemara asks a contradiction on Shmuel himself. Shall we say that Shmuel holds that in Hedyet, lav kedin gavoya dami, the payment by a Hedyet is more lenient and less than the halacha of hektish? Here the Gemara is going to bring from a statement of Shmuel where we see that he compared the Hedyet to hektish. We learned in the Mishnah regarding the halacha of Me'ilah. And here this Mishnah is talking about the Gizbar of Hektish. He's the Gabbai of Hektish, and he takes care of all the objects of Hektish. So now this Gizbar, Notal Evan Eikairem Hektish, he took a stone or a beam of the Hektish, and he's taking it from one location to another, Loimal. He's not Moil. He didn't misuse Hektish because he's the one that takes care of these things of Hektish, so he takes them from one place to another. However, Nasna Lachaveiroi, if he takes it and gives it as a gift to his friend, so then who mal? The Gabbai of Hektish was not Moil. He gave it away from Hektish, so he's going to be Moil. V'chaveiroi loy mal. Now, as we mentioned before, once you Moil, it leaves the domain of Hektish. Now, the friend that uses it is not Moil. This Gabbai of Hektish builds this beam of Hektish into his house. Loy mal, he's still not going to be moil. Now, as Rashi explains, the case of here is he didn't build it into his house, mamish, like you build it into the wall of your house. What he did was, for example, there was a skylight in the house and you wanted to block the sunlight of coming in, and he just placed it there on the roof, on top of the skylight to block the light of the sun. So he's not going to be moil. Moil means he did not misappropriate the possession of hektish just by placing it there onto the roof of your house. Unless you actually are going to be using it by living under this beam that you put on the roof of your house, and you're going to use it in the value of a shava pruta. Then you're going to be moil. That was the Mishnah. Now on this, the Yosef Rabavo Kameh Rabbi Yechon, and Rabavo was sitting in front of Rabbi Yechon, and the Yosef Kameh Mishmei de Shmuel. And Rabavo said in the name of Shmuel that we could learn from this halacha by hektish to apply the same by the halacha of a hedyet. This is a halacha that we learned in Bava Metzia regarding a person that lives in his friend's house without his permission, but it's a house that's empty, that he's not renting out to anybody. This is what's called zen nene. You have a benefit of living in his house, and he has no loss by it. He's not using it anyways. You don't even tell him about it. It's without his knowledge at all. And the question is, in such a case, would you be responsible to pay just for the fact that you had a nar from him? Or maybe no. He's loy chaser. He doesn't even know about it, so he shouldn't be responsible to pay. So he said in the name of Shmuel that we could learn here from this halacha of hektish. This halacha that we say that if you lived under this beam that you placed onto the roof of the house, and then you're going to be moil shava pruta and yechayev. What this means is hadar b'chatzar chavere shalei midaita. If you live in a courtyard of your friend without his knowledge at all, and you're having a na while he has no loss at all, nevertheless tzarech lahalas lo yischar. You have to pay him the rent for living over there. The comparison is just like over here regarding the hektish. There is nobody of hektish that knows that you're taking this hana from the hektish. You're just placing it on the roof. You're not building it into your house. It's just placed there, sitting there. So it's still sort of in the domain of hektish. But nevertheless, if you sat under it and you had a na of it, the hektish had no loss. There's nobody of hektish that knows about it, but you had a na, so that's mi'ilah. So too, if you're living in someone's house without the knowledge of the owner and you're having a na, you're going to have to pay for him. So what do we see from here? That Shmuel compared, he learned out from the halacha of payment by hektish to the halacha of payment when you have a na from someone by hedyet. So how could we say before that Shmuel says we don't compare hektish to hedyet? By hedyet we're more lenient, and by hektish we're more stringent. So how does he say over here that we compare it? That if by hektish you have to pay, we're the same stringent to say by a hedyet? So the Gemara answers, but didn't Rabbi Yechanan say, this is what Rabbi Vo said in the name of Shmuel in front of Rabbi Yechanan. But Rabbi Yechanan responded to that and said, Shmuel mahi. Shmuel retracted from that comparison. Compared to say that just like by hedyet, if you live under this beam, a value of a shava pruta, yara no, and it's me'ilah, you misappropriated hektish, that applies by hektish, but that will not necessarily apply when it comes to you living in someone's house without his knowledge. So he had charata from that. And therefore, what Shmuel said before, that we don't compare hedyet to hektish, is still true. But the Gemara asks on this, how do you know that Shmuel had enough from that statement where he said that we do compare hedyet to hektish? Maybe over here when he says that you don't compare hedyet to hektish, maybe it's from this statement that he retracted. So the Gemara says, Loi ma'ahi hadebeit. No, he did not have charata from what he said before, that we do not compare Hedya to Hektish, because Rava explained over here, when it comes to using something from Hektish without the knowledge of Hektish, why are you going to be responsible to pay? Why is that Me'ilah? Because Rava explained, Hektish shaloi midas, when you use something from Hektish, and it's not with the knowledge of anybody from Hektish that you took it from. You just went over here, the Gizbar himself, the Gizbar of Hektish himself, placed it on the roof, and then he goes later on and he has a no from it. It's not like there was someone from Hektish that knew that you were taking it away from them. But kehedyet midas tummy. That's like by a hedyet, where you let the hedyet know that I'm going to be living in your house, and you're having a no from his house, and he has a chesaron, and you have to pay him. So Rashi explains, the point is that when it comes to Hektish, you can't ever say by Hektish, oh, I used something from Hektish, but Hektish has no loss, and there's nobody that Hektish that even knows that I took it, so therefore there's no hana, it's just my hana, but no one from Hektish knows that I took it, so I don't have to pay. You can't say such a thing by Hektish. Why not? Because who does Hektish belong to? It belongs to Hashem. And when you use it, you're using it, and the Eibishter knows that you're using it, and therefore, of course, you're going to have to pay to Hektish. But when it comes to a hedyet between two people, so then you could still say that if I lived in someone's house, I moved into his house, and he has no loss of this, and he doesn't know about it, so for the time that I was there, I will not have to pay. So you can't compare these two things. So we see clearly that Shmuel held that the halacha over here is that we don't compare hedyet to hektish. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. There's a lot of different pshatim here that the Rishonim say, but this is Rashi's pshat. Okay, let's see one more piece in the Gemara. Omar Rave said, Hanish kuloi. These people that are porters, they tavru chavise the chamre lechemve, that is, they broke the barrel of wine for a storekeeper that they were transporting this barrel from one place to another. So now the question is, how much do they have to pay him for the value of this barrel of wine? If it's a day in the marketplace when people come to buy this wine, so then the price actually goes up because everybody wants it. So then you can sell it for 5. There's more customers, you can sell it for 5. But on another day of the week where it's not the day of the marketplace, it could only be sold for 4. So how much do you have to pay when you return it to him? So if you're giving it back, you're giving him back a barrel. And you're giving it back to him before the day of the market comes, where now the owner, the storekeeper, will be able to take it to sell it on the day of the market. So then you just give him back the barrel because he'll be able to make the profit of 5 on the day of the market. So then you give it back as is. But b'shar yoime, if you're giving him back this barrel on another day of the week, which is not before the time of the market, then mahadrele, you're going to have to give him back and add him a fifth coin, an additional payment here, to replace him the full value that it would be if it could be sold on the day, like it could be sold on the day of the market. Because now you're giving it back to him on a time when he cannot sell it in the market. Even though he can wait until the next time that there'll be a day of the people will be in the market, but that's too late. He doesn't have to wait for that. So usually you're going to have to give him 5 because of the value that he lost because he could have had it on the day of the market. But now the Gemara says, "V'loya maran." When do we say that the payment here is based on what the owner could have sold it in the marketplace? That's only said if this person now says, look, you took away my wine, you broke the wine, now I have no wine to sell in the market. I would have sold it in the market. So for me, it's a value of 5, and he doesn't have it now. But if we see that this person has additional barrels of wine in his house or in his store, and it comes the day of the market, and he doesn't even sell it in the market. So you can't say, I would have sold it in the market, so now pay me the value of 5 that it is in the market. We see that he's not even selling it. He should have been selling his barrels in the market, and he's not. So therefore, you're not going to have to pay him 5. So this is the svara that you mentioned before, that over here we look at this person, and if we see that he's not selling it in the market, so then you just have to give him the value of 4, not the value of 5 that it's sold in the market. Now, another detail the Gemara says over here, when you have to pay him because he's not going to be able to sell it now in the market, so now you're going to give him 5 or $5, whatever five it is, instead of the barrel of wine, but you do have to deduct a certain amount of money of this 5 that you pay him. But you do have to deduct a certain amount of pay, because if he would have the actual barrel of wine to sell in the marketplace, he would have to sit there with the barrel of wine and sell it to one person, another person. He has the barrel has a spout, then he's going to give wine and sell it to one person, another person. It's a lot of tirche. And now he's getting the profit of 5 without any of that tirche. So there's a certain value of the fact that this person would be ready to just sit home and not to have to do all that tircha. So you deduct that amount that he would be ready to pay for that from the payment of the 5. And another thing you have to deduct is with the May Barzanaisa. You also have to deduct, if you would have had an actual barrel of wine, he would have to pay someone to make a spout in this barrel to be able to sell. Now that you're giving him the full 5, he doesn't have to pay anybody to make that spout for you. For the owner. So therefore you have to deduct that amount of payment as well from the payment.